There is a certain aspect to this story in Venezuela that I have been remiss in providing information on, and I'd like to apologize for that. In today's video, we're going to have two parts. In the first part, I'm going to try to clear up this misconception about economic mismanagement in Venezuela, and in the second part, we are going to hear from people in Venezuela, first from the people that support Nicolas Maduro, and second from the people that support random guy named Juan. And during those interviews, it's from a channel called The Gray Zone, who's doing some excellent work. You will see in the background the real story. You'll be able to listen to what the people are saying, but when you look in the background, because it's an on-the-street interview, both of them, you'll be able to see that the situation is very different than what you're being led to believe. Now, the issue with sanctions, the questions that I get are, how can just quote-unquote targeted sanctions on the government cause such food shortages and a lack of supplies for the people? Clearly, it must be economic mismanagement, right? No, it isn't. What the U.S. government is counting on, Washington, D.C., is most Americans not understanding the difference in how business works in countries like this, these oil exporting countries like Ecuador and Mexico and Venezuela, Saudi Arabia. They have a different driver of their economy. And you can debate whether that's good or whether that's bad, but it's worked. PDVSA, Pemex, Petrobras, Petroecuador, Aramco, these are state-run oil companies. How it works in these countries is this. They establish that, first, the mineral resource wealth of that country belongs to its people. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the government to take that resource and put it on the open market, bring in income for it, and then use that to benefit the people. That is not something that is unique to Venezuela. What happens, the mechanism is this. Once the oil is pumped and sold on the open market, the money comes into the government. The government then, pardon me one second, takes those funds and makes deals with wholesalers around the world for the things needed to run a society. Groceries being just one of those things. Now, the grocery store chains inside Venezuela are private businesses. I know that would shock a lot of people. They absolutely are. But they have a very special relationship with the government. You see, unlike grocery stores here, where the grocery store itself goes and buys things on the open market wholesale, they are now buying from the government. And the government says, because of our financial muscle, we have the ability to bring in incredible amounts of things and get it at a very, very low cost. We are going to then make it incumbent upon you to pass those savings along to the people of this country, in this case, Venezuela. Why? Because the money that we used to purchase those goods at an incredibly low cost wholesale was from the proceeds of the sale of the mineral wealth that already belongs to the people anyway. The idea of running a grocery store or a business down here doesn't root itself in personal profit and enrichment. These are facilitation points, basically. Instead of the government having to just take those goods and then try to themselves dole them out to the people or have the people come directly to them, they use these outlets as a mechanism to keep the free flow of goods moving in a way that is organized. Now, that doesn't mean that the people who run the grocery store chains don't make profit. They absolutely do make profit. In fact, many of them have gotten incredibly wealthy and they live in Miami. That's how wealthy they are. But the government says this to them. There are certain things, basic staple goods, that you may not jack up beyond a certain price. to turn profit. You have all sorts of these other luxury goods. Do whatever the hell you want with them. But these things, in the case of Nicholas Maduro, there's 50 products that they say you cannot charge more than this amount, no matter what. If you lose money, well, such is life. Or if you're breaking even, you'll never really lose money because the government of Venezuela doesn't say you must charge less than what we're charging you because they have to repatriate the money. Of course, they don't get it free because the government bought it. So these businesses, when the sanctions hit, were in a very difficult position. Why? Because they had set a certain amount of prices for certain amounts of things, and they had built a business model. When our government attacked the government of Venezuela with these sanctions, it prohibited them from making deals with these wholesalers. These wholesalers themselves were prohibited from dealing with PDVSA, the state-run oil company. Now, the U.S. ran out this idea that, well, we're just targeting this corrupt business and we're just targeting these corrupt people, when they didn't tell you the rest of the story. They didn't say, oh yeah, and by the way, these corrupt people in this corrupt business are responsible for the entire supply of food in the country. They left that part out, conveniently. So, when the prices went up for the government, because they had to go to other suppliers, other places in the world, and it was, of course, more costly to do so, the prices necessarily had to go up. And then people started flipping out. They're like, wait a minute, why are these prices going up? They've been so low for so long, based on the mineral well. They understand in Venezuela how this works. And, of course, the U.S. and its spin machine, with the big, wealthy businesses on their side, said, yeah, it's the corrupt government in Venezuela. It's Miraflores Palace. It's their fault because this, that, and the other. And, of course, they wanted to see regime change themselves because a pro-U.S. government would take the chains off of big business down here and would let them charge whatever the hell they wanted for whatever, whenever, and they wouldn't care who suffered. See, that's the fundamental argument here. In the United States, we don't have a mechanism anymore, not since 2015, that reins in big oil. Basically, these big oil corporations are taking the wealth of the American people and enriching a very, very few. And I don't think that surprises a lot of my audience. But down here, they had done away with that a long time ago. And this is exactly how it works in Brazil. It's exactly how it works in Mexico. It's exactly how it works in Ecuador. It's exactly how it works in all of these nations that rely on the income of oil. So when the U.S. sanctions all these countries, it punishes the people directly. And I'll give you links to these sanctions where the U.S. has tried to put in the title of the sanction something like, oh, just these individuals, just those individuals. All they are doing is telling you half the story. They don't tell you what the effect is because of the way business runs down there. And they would make the argument that that's a bad way to do business. But that's not for the U.S. to decide, is it? There were no problems in that country prior to 2014. And I defy anyone to go show me any article anywhere, anybody reporting starvation, humanitarian crisis, humanitarian exodus prior to 2014. I've looked. I've looked and I've looked and I've looked. There were problems in Venezuela regarding a lot of other things. One of the biggest ones was our crisis in 2008. That was the only real hiccup in their revenue. That's why I use this chart. The sanctions began in 2014. And I have that right. Where is it? One section. There we go. That is this, and this is right from the State Department, right here. This all started 12/18/2014. If you look this up, go to www.state.gov, Venezuela, the sanctions. 2014, this started. Isn't that odd that this chart shows it exactly the same time when everything fell apart? This is the part of the story they're not telling you. Now, as promised, our 2 interviews. This is Max Blumenthal. Now, he is in a wealthy part of the country, and these are the supporters of a random guy named Juan. Now, I'm going to let this play. I'm going to put it at 1.25. It's a 5-minute interview, and I think you will get the basic gist of what really the story is just by looking at the background and listening to what's being said. Let me get the volume adjusted here. All right, here we go.
Here in the Chacao district, very affluent area of Caracas, for a major opposition demonstration on the 5th anniversary of the Guarimba protests. And people are here. They've just seen Juan Guaido speak. They're very fired up. And the main call here is for humanitarian aid, to let the U.S. aid across the border, which the government of Venezuela is calling a de facto invasion. And you can see here people are you hungry, sir? ¿Tienes hambre?
No, there are 300,000 people that are hungry here right now in Venezuela. 300,000 people. It's a hell.
And so you're calling for humanitarian aid?
Of course, that we need it.
Right, we need it. We need it. We are in a lot of need.
Are you hungry?
Yes.
What would you eat?
Well, anything that I have in my house, but I have to work all day long.
Yeah.
And then go out to find something to buy.
So she's complaining because she has to go to work and then go to the grocery store after? Gosh, that must be hell.
And the prices are too high.
Very high, very high. It's like a bunch of kale. It costs 6,000 bolívares.
Sin embargo, yo tengo aquí como 1 hora y he visto pasar gente en sillas de ruedas. Las tallas, te invito a ver la talla de mi pantalón. Yo he perdido más de 10 kilos en 2 años.
10 kilograms in 2 years? 5 kilograms a year. That's like not even a pound a month. And most Americans, well, I won't even go there.
Protestando porque queremos vivir en libertad, vivir en democracia. Y si no manifestamos, y si no nos ven que estamos disgustados, la gente piensa que estamos bien, como dijo la reportera, que aquí no hay ningún problema porque hay McDonald's y hay ferma todo.
No tenemos alimentos, no tenemos comida, no tenemos nada. Te da
Did that woman look like she was starving?
miedo de que de repente puedas salir al cine porque si no es la delincuencia la que te atrapa, te da miedo por todo. No solamente es la parte del día a día que vivimos, sino también el psicoterror. Te da miedo de que de repente te puedas parar firme frente a algo y decir esto no es así, que vengan los colectivos y te ataquen, te da miedo por todo.
Yo siento que el chavismo como tal me ha quitado mi juventud. Siento que no he tenido la juventud que yo he querido tener como persona. También yo estudio leyes y siento que lo que han hecho es burlarse de la ley, burlarse del Estado de Derecho como tal.
Minimizan al ser humano porque los humillan por una caja de comida, ¿ves? Entonces no es posible que después que nosotros hayamos tenido tanta bonanza, estas personas con este narcogobierno hayan acabado con todo. Sumamente necesaria para la gente que no tiene recursos, porque nosotros que estamos clase media, que ya somos clase media baja, mal que bien, algún familiar nos manda los medicamentos
Notice the guy selling the cotton candy in the background?
de afuera.
Un billete de 100 convertido en 10.000 millones. Esto lo dice todo.
Another guy who's clearly starving.
Este es el valor del gobierno, lo que nos arruinó.
Pero apoyas las sanciones.
Por supuesto. Es que las sanciones son muy débiles, hermano.
Son sanciones dirigidas a funcionarios corruptos. Hay que dejar muy claro, no existe el bloqueo del que habla la gente de Nicolás Maduro.
Todo lo que nos ayuda a que salga este régimen dictatorial de acá, yo creo que lo apoyamos.
Está luchando por la libertad de nuestro país, así que eso se lo aplaudo. Puede ser que no esté de acuerdo con todas sus políticas, pero eso se lo aplaudo y se lo agradezco.
Por supuesto, siempre que se ayuda y siempre él es un tipo que quiere que salgamos de esta dictadura y por supuesto que ayudamos y yo estoy completamente de acuerdo con él, siempre que no sea una invasión militar.
As long as it's not a military invasion. Well, sorry.
Marco Rubio, ¿te gusta Rubio?
Senador, sí.
Él es tu héroe.
Él es pieza importante en todo lo que estamos logrando ahorita aquí en el país.
Sí.
Es importante, de verdad. Ha logrado muchísimo.
Y Rubio. Marco.
Ha ayudado mucho por nosotros. Nos ha ayudado muchísimo, muchísimo a nosotros los venezolanos.
Yep, that's right. They sure did. They paid off Marco Rubio to speak for the wealthy.
Ha dado una voz allá. Le vamos a dar la nacionalidad venezolana a Rubio. Se la merece. Ahorita es diferente, pero eso lo lograron desde allá de los Estados Unidos.
The protest stage was flanked by 2 banners reading humanitarian aid.
highlighting the main demand of the rally, the entry of USAID across the Colombian border and into Venezuela.
Sí, por la ayuda humanitaria, la necesitamos.
En los Estados Unidos,
De cualquier país la necesitamos, cualquiera. Pero ¿por qué los cubanos sí están aquí? Entonces, ¿cuál independencia? Si están los cubanos en Venezuela. No existe tal independencia. ¿Bien? Gracias.
Con tal de que intervengan y podamos solucionar el tema de las elecciones y de nuestra libertad, me parece que es viable esa opción. Él decía, ahí está el detalle, es una cuestión de micrófono. Nosotros necesitamos más acción, necesitamos más sangre humana en el corazón.
Nuestra Asamblea Nacional está facultada para solicitar también el apoyo de misiones militares extranjeras.
Nosotros somos un país pacífico. Aquí no va a pasar lo de Libia. Es imposible.
Yeah, of course, it's totally impossible that it could possibly be Libya.
well, see,
Somos un país pacífico.
given the history of the U.S. in Latin America, there's plenty of reasons to be skeptical about the idea that humanitarian aid pouring over the Colombian border into Venezuela is purely a charitable venture. But people here in the financial district, in a wealthy area of Caracas, are taking the U.S. at its word. And having been spoon-fed a narrative about the goodwill of the U.S., are ready to accept whatever USAID and the Trump administration has to offer.
All right, so those are the people that are for Random Guy Named Juan. Now, we're going to go over to the other side of town, and we're going to hear from the people who support the president say.
Caracas, where thousands of Venezuelans have been waiting in line for hours to sign an open letter to the American public denouncing U.S. intervention and aggression against their country.
Se trata de la patria, hay que defender la patria como a toda costa. Es nuestro país, tenemos que luchar por este país, no nos queda otra.
El patrón que no venga para acá.
Que nos ayuden más bien, ¿vale?
Que no lo queremos. Patrón no lo queremos aquí, ninguno de esos bichos.
Claro, dicen que nos estamos muriendo de hambre, no, nosotros no nos estamos muriendo de hambre, que nosotros estamos peleando entre nosotros, no, que digan la verdad de lo que está pasando, ¿verdad? Porque nosotros aquí le elegimos un presidente, no a Guaidó que está por allá, no, aquí elegimos un presidente con voto, ¿ves? Y lo proclamó el pueblo.
Y por eso estamos aquí, por un idealismo que el finado Chávez nos dio, porque con Chávez estamos hasta la muerte, con Maduro seguimos porque es el hijo de Chávez y él dio su corazón, Chávez, por nuestro pueblo. Estamos pasando mal, sí, sí es verdad, pero vamos a sobrellevar eso y Dios nos va a tener que ayudar. Y yo te digo de corazón que todos somos hermanos, independientemente de la patria donde estemos, todos somos iguales.
7, 8, 9, 10 aquí. Antes que llegue Chávez apoyando a mi país, yo no necesito que ninguno de esas porquerías venga para acá, ¿no? Nuestro país es soberano. Vamos a hacer que ni gringo, ni argentino, ni peruano, ni colombiano, ni brasileño, no. Cuando haya los gobiernos progresistas en esos países, okay, volvemos a las relaciones como estaba antes, como hubo con Ecuador con José de Correa.
Bueno, están quedando mentiras, porque yo estoy viendo que el pueblo está apoyando a Nicolás Maduro. Veo que la gente está viniendo a su firma. Uno ve que la gente sigue a manada, los vecinos lo invitan a uno a firmar. Vamos a firmar. Porque es verdad que, bueno, sí, el país está en crisis. Pero también es por el bloqueo que tienen los otros países hacia el país. Todos los apoyan porque él no está sin buen gobierno porque lo tienen todo bloqueado. Le dimos a Maduro que baje los precios de la comida porque los están atacando ellos los especuladores. Y que estamos con él.
What that lady was talking about with speculators is that when the supply of goods became hard to find, these grocery store chains began raising the prices way, way up beyond anything they had ever charged before. And the government said, hold on, we had an agreement, and they said, well, screw you, we're going to get the U.S. to intervene and overthrow you so that we can charge whatever the hell we want to charge.
Eso fue hacia abajo, a lo que dice Nicolás Maduro, a las catatumbas del pueblo, a encontrarse con ese pueblo. Ese fue Hugo Chávez. Por eso, que la gran mayoría de las personas que están aquí son adultos mayores. Nuestra juventud lamentablemente todavía está alienada, y alienada por los teléfonos,
está sumida en un error que es manipulado, ya lo sabemos, por ese imperio mediático.
Yo estoy aquí por la paz. Yo quiero formar por la paz. Yo no quiero que haya ningún intervencionismo aquí.
Aquí no nos paga nadie. Aquí no nos paga nadie. Aquí estamos firmes con la revolución. Esta revolución llegó con Chávez y Chávez abrió los ojos de todos esos países del mundo. Por eso es que en esos países mantienen aunque sea una foto de Hugo Chávez, un busto de Hugo Chávez. La memoria de Hugo Chávez está pendiente en los ojos de todo el mundo. Estamos aquí por voluntad propia. Nadie nos está pagando, el presidente hizo el llamado y venimos a defender nuestra patria con paz y felicidad. Te queremos, Maduro. Paz y felicidad.
Nosotros vamos a firmar para eso, para que no venga esa guerra. No queremos guerra, creo que queremos paz y felicidad y amor. Nosotros somos amigos de todo el mundo. Usted no me conoce a mí, yo no la conozco ni a usted, pero le doy cariño, le doy amor.
Nosotros estamos aquí por voluntad propia, por un legado que nos dejó nuestro comandante eterno, Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías, y para seguir con esta revolución, que ningún imperio nos la va a quitar, que nos quiten el desbloqueo, para nosotros vivir tranquilos y felices, porque nosotros somos un pueblo de paz. Y la riqueza que tenemos es de nosotros, no es del imperio. Y el único que nos ha ayudado a nosotros se llama Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías y Nicolás Maduro Moro, que es el que le está poniendo el pecho a todo el bloqueo que nos están haciendo para ayudar al pueblo, para que nos pase necesidad ni hambre. Y nadie nos está pagando, ni nadie nos está obligando a que nosotros estemos aquí respaldando nuestra revolución y a nuestro camarada Nicolás Maduro Moro. Tiene que seguir, que viva Chávez, Nicolás.
Estamos por voluntad propia, nadie nos está pagando. No sabes que el país está difícil es por la guerra que nos tiene. Aquí hay un presidente con votos, que es Nicolás Maduro. Que se ya la guerra y la violencia hacia el socialismo, por favor, que queremos paz.
If you listen to the right-wing Venezuelan opposition or Western corporate media, you wouldn't even know these people existed. Well, at the Gray Zone, we're going to be speaking to them and breaking the media blockade.
Did you see any starving people? I didn't see any starving people. I saw a society that's in a state of transition. I saw people on both sides. I didn't see any government thugs anywhere reining anyone in. I didn't see any tear gas. I saw a really long line to sign a letter. And I saw some people that have been used to things being very easy for them for a very long time throwing a hissy fit. And that's really what this is about. Like here, in Venezuela, there is a schism in society. They had very, very wealthy people that were used to being in control of everything for a long time. And when the U.S. attacked, it caused them to choose sides, and they chose to side with what's commonly referred to here as the deep state. And they're learning this isn't going to be nearly as easy as they thought it was going to be. This is what the U.S. has done. Our government has done, I should say, D.C. They don't want to give you the entire story. They want to talk in sound bites. I've tried to keep my videos down to 10 minutes so as not to waste a whole lot of your time. Unfortunately, explaining this takes more time than that. There is this fundamental concept that the American people are completely foreign to. The idea that the resources of a nation belong inherently to the people of that nation. We don't have that idea here anymore. Not since they lifted the ban on oil export for profit. That ban handcuffed big oil. And since that ban was lifted in 2015, they have attempted to destroy the rest of the world with the help of Washington, D.C. This is what we're facing. Very wealthy, elitist interests are going to start to go after the people of the world. And we're going to be next eventually. So, if I could give one piece of advice, watch what the Venezuelans do, the people of Venezuela, because they're leading the way. When you hear the term campesino or you hear the term chavista, these people don't need full grocery stores to live. it's nice to be able to go and get some things off the shelf. But if we invade down there and these people take up arms, they're not going to be held in handcuffs to, well, you either kowtow or you won't have this, that, or the other. The wealthy will kowtow, sure, because they want all of their comforts of life. But the campesinos and the chavistas, they live like 19th century American farmers. They grow their own food. They'll drink water out of a stream and bathe in the same stream if necessary. And they'll fight. And there's not 1,000 of them. There's not 10,000 of them. There's not 100,000 of them. There are millions of them. And they are armed. And they will fight. And that's why this is something that I think will change the face of our hemisphere for a long time. I've called it the greatest geopolitical miscalculation the United States has ever made. It might be the greatest geopolitical miscalculation by any government ever, other than perhaps Rome and the Huns. So we'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.